talk about my story with gallstones, the symptoms, the diagnosis, and then in another series we'll follow up with everything I had to do. So what I'm going to start out by doing is going through this blog post that I made. It's extremely long, and I figured that if I was to just go through it, it would be much easier, and I can talk and add my commentary, etc. So I'll start here. I know this starts in December, but I'm going to start in July of 2017 because that's when I had my daughter, and I don't know if there was any correlation, but it was after like researching and looking around, it did seem that pregnancy could cause gallstones to come on. How, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I gave birth in July of 2017. Nothing for 5 months until December of 2017. One day I had this crushing rib pain. It started off mild in my back and rib region, and then it progressively got worse over the next couple of days to the point where I felt like my ribs were crushing and felt like they were definitely going to cave in. I also had this burning sensation when I pressed my stomach in the middle, like right in the middle of my abdomen. And so these weren't all typical, I would say, gallbladder symptoms from what I've read on Google and WebMD and health apps and things like that. And so that's what I had felt. I ended up getting sick. I threw up. Once I vomited, I felt better. So then I just chalked it up to being a very bad stomach bug and perhaps some painful gas that also decided to sit in my rib region. And so at that point, I vowed to never order from the same restaurant that I had eaten from, thinking that their food was what made me sick. Then toward the end of December 2017, I had another episode, as I like to call it, an attack. I didn't order from the same restaurant. At this point, I don't remember what I ate, but I can tell you I was not watching my diet, so I was eating fattening foods that if you were health conscious, you wouldn't be eating. And so at that point, the pain this time came on extremely quick. And it felt again like my ribs were crushing, had indigestion, felt like the food was stuck in my stomach and my throat. So I made an appointment to call the doctor, and I saw him that night. My stomach was still bothering me before I went to the doctor. My ribs were crushing again. I was shaking, sweating because the pain was so unbearable. And at that point, I didn't know what to do because the food felt like it was stuck. And so I was like, all right, and we'll get into this in one video, but I was bulimic before. And so I'm like, well, this is nothing new. Let me just make myself throw up and get the food out. Whatever could possibly be making me ill. I still had no inkling that this was anything that was, serious as like an actual medical condition. I just thought it was like really bad food issues, like having food poisoning or something. So after I made myself throw up, I was extremely surprised, because at that point, I was fine after I threw up. I mean, all within 30 minutes, all my symptoms had cleared. I was back to feeling normal, no rib pain, no tummy issues, no indigestion when I pressed my stomach. And so my MD also thought what I was thinking, and we had thought that there was something I was eating that maybe was bringing on like some kind of immune response, or I might be allergic to it, or something that was too harsh for my body to handle. Maybe spicy foods. I was craving them while I was pregnant, couldn't eat them because of heartburn. And so when I was not pregnant anymore and didn't have the heartburn, I went ham on it, and I would eat a lot of spicy foods along with junk food. So at that point, the recommendation from my doctor was to begin an elimination diet, removing foods that I'd eaten before my attacks. Being that I was feeling well again after having thrown up, I decided to leave, follow the elimination diet. We also at that point decided not to progress with any further testing. Then in the beginning of January, I'd say the first 2 weeks, I had about 4 attacks, which was like a lot. I'm gonna say my diet again still wasn't the greatest. I frequently ate chips, unhealthy foods, burgers, fried foods, etc. I was also heavy at the time, which will come in handy by mentioning this here for a later video. And then October, so let's just take a step back. So I was craving a bunch of fatty foods in large quantities from October 2017 to the beginning of 2018. Come the third week in January, yet again another attack. This time the attack came on at work. Being that I had been down that road before, I knew what I kind of had to do, so I left work like in a rush. It was all a blur. I don't even think I emailed them or did anything to tell them that I was leaving. I just flew out the door. Got home. I remember also, like, with the gallbladder attacks, I got so delusional because the pain was so intense. And so I was like, okay, I have to go home. I flew out, rushed out. I ended up throwing up. Again, once I got home, I remember also walking in the door and taking all my clothes off because I was just like literally delusional. So that night I made another appointment for my doctor, and at that point he had ordered a blood test and an ultrasound. I was also referred to gastrointestinal doctor just to look at my case in case there was anything additional. Prior to my going for the first test that my doctor had, I had kind of just started to do my own research. Most of my symptoms were pointing towards something with the gallbladder, possibly gallstones. So in an effort to try to not have any attacks before figuring out exactly what I needed to do to fix this issue going forward, I did my research and I followed the the gallbladder diet, as I like to call it. And I think, like a lot of websites, if you look, you'll also see it's called the gallbladder diet. I was successful in preventing another attack until I went for surgery. And I was also able to lose 30 pounds within an extremely short amount of time. So in the first week of February 2018, I started the test, went for the ultrasound. It did, in fact, reveal on the screen that I had gallstones. I had about 9 of them. And I don't know if that's a lot or if that's a little, but I know that I had them and that this was what was all the pain. Now, knowing what the issue was, I booked my appointment for the gastrointestinal doctor for the second week of February 2018. At that point, I was advised by the GI doctor, she was extremely sweet, by the way. And so she said she'd referred me to a general surgeon who I actually loved, because she said most likely that was what was causing everything, and probably the best option was to remove that from my body. Went to the gastro doctor on February 6th. Decided that surgery was the option that I needed to go. And we booked my surgery for February 20th. And so that was like, I have bad anxiety, and that was just like a whirlwind because it was so